Australia's massive economic relationship with China should not mean that we appease its communist leadership or approve its imperial ambitions. Over the past 24 hours, a succession of Labor figures, but only those out of the parliament, I should add, have condemned the presence of former Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews at yesterday's massive military parade in Beijing and his participation in that shocking family photo of the dictators of China, Russia, Iran and North Korea, all alongside the Victorian. All dictatorships that are now, right now, challenging the peace and prosperity that we have been blessed to enjoy since the end of the Second World War. Now, that's not to deny that there's been conflict during that time. It's just that in historical terms, we have been the lucky generations, spared the carnage seen by our parents and our grandparents. Of Andrew's willingness to stand shoulder to shoulder with war criminals and despots, the former Queensland Labor Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk said it was a bridge too far.
There's a difference between trade and going along to a military parade. So if it was me, it'd be a definitely no, I would not be attending that. It just is the next level. It's a bridge too far.
Good on her. Former federal Labor MP Michael Danby said it was disgusting. Other Labor figures were even more outspoken. Overnight, one federal Labor MP reportedly called the former Victorian Premier a traitor for standing on a podium with murderous dictators. The one person, though, who was not out there with criticism was the Prime Minister, who insists that his former flatmate and recent election advisor was simply there as a private citizen.
Well, they are delulu, Mr Speaker. I am not responsible for what every Australian citizen does. None of my team would have sat in that position. As simple as that.
Now, please, since when do simple private citizens get to have a handshake there and stand on the red carpet with the Red Emperor and stand there too on full view with a whole lot of national leaders and watch that show of communist military might? Now, Dan Andrews was there as a political accessory. He was there to pay homage to Xi. He was there to pay tribute to the man who's dead set on taking Taiwan by force if necessary and replacing the United States as the world's top power and preeminent global currency. Dan Andrews was there in place of the Australian ambassador so that the PM could walk both sides of the street. You see, he could pretend to the Americans and to the Australian people that we remain a strong security partner because our top diplomat stayed away, at the same time kowtowing to Beijing by sending his best mate to bow and scrape. For the Chinese, they had Andrews there for only one reason, so that the world would think that Australia's on China's side and Russia's and Iran's and North Korea's. Even though the former Premier has founded two companies which describe themselves as China-focused business ventures and is working closely with Twiggy Forrest Fortescue Metals to sell so-called green iron into China. And even though it's impossible to do business in China without a close relationship with the Communist Party, Dan Andrews has not registered as a foreign agent. That's right. If you look at the government's official website, others are there: Kevin Rudd, Malcolm Turnbull, Alexander Downer, but not apparently Dictator Dan. Back a couple of years ago when Tony Abbott accepted an unpaid role on the UK Board of Trade, he was forced to register as a foreign agent, even though he didn't earn a dollar from that role and even though Britain is our oldest ally. So is it fair that Daniel Andrews seeks lucrative business deals in China and appears at that sort of propaganda event, as we saw this week, with and for the Chinese government, but not declare himself as an agent of foreign influence? Something the opposition smartly pursued during question time.
Is the Prime Minister aware that Daniel Andrews has not disclosed his engagement on the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme Register? And will the Prime Minister immediately write to his close personal friend and former flatmate seeking his immediate compliance with the register?
Speaker, the question has been framed in a way that it's not with respect to what the Prime Minister is officially connected with. Which has then led to imputation after imputation in the way that that question has been framed.
PM not connected with the PM and his government's own official register? Come on. You at home can get on the computer and have a look for yourself. He is not there. Former Premier's business partner too, Marty Mai, described as a rising star of Australian-Chinese political community, a Labor networker par excellence, who, as the Andrews staffer, negotiated Victoria's entry into China's Belt and Road Initiative, something, of course, Dan today was out there saying he was very proud of. Andrews is now in business with his staffer. Reportedly, they're making millions. Very interesting, isn't it? There's also questions here too for former New South Wales Premier, former Foreign Minister, of course, Bob Carr. Again, look at the website. It would also appear that Carr, like Andrews, has not registered as a foreign agent. Previously, Carr was the director of the Australia-China Relations Institute. This was founded by Huang Zhimo, who you'll recall was stripped of his Australian residency because ASIO regarded him as an agent of the Chinese government. But at least Carr had the decency to absent himself from the propaganda stunt yesterday. Despite earlier praising the Chinese communists for their wartime role, Carr made it known he was too busy hosting an afternoon tea to attend. And late this afternoon, Carr has issued a statement that it says he had emphatic and decisive advice from UTS lawyers that he was not required to sign the register. And the interpretation was upheld, he says, by the AG's department, which has never required him to register as a result. But back to Dictator Dan, because his Chinese push doesn't end with his front row spot at Xi's big parade. Today, more emerged about the former Victorian Premier's boosterism for the Chinese communist dictatorship. Here's Andrews on Chinese TV claiming that China was leading the world in renewable energy transitions, even though it is opening 2 new coal-fired power stations almost every single week.
If you look at China's record, massive investments and a big switch, a very big switch, one that I don't think China quite gets the international credit and acclaim for that it should get.
I don't know, but if he's involved in any of those industries, if he's involved in renewables between China and Australia, I would hope the former Premier makes that publicly and transparently known, that it is declared. The Prime Minister can say all he likes that China's military parade was not attended by any, quote, government representatives.
My position is very, very clear, which is we did not send any government representative because it wouldn't have been appropriate. None of my team would have sat in that position. As simple as that.
No government representatives. That is empty rhetoric. He didn't need to send a government representative because present was the person who everybody knows, including the Chinese, that's the PM's best mate in politics. Dan Andrews might have issued that statement late this afternoon. He's put one out, Carr's put one out, but the Andrews statement, well, it's weak. Doesn't even address the issue of the foreign register. Now, what a shocking look for a former Premier. But I tell you what a terrible look for our country that always used to fight for freedom, but now looks like it's absolutely driven by the Chinese dime.